Hello guys, and welcome to my YouTube channel. In this channel, I will do everything in order to share with you the knowledge I have based on mobile repairing. And I will also be fixing certain mobile phone issues. So the best thing you can do for me is to like this video and also subscribe to my channel so that the video can go viral. And also when I upload a new video, you will be able to receive or to see it. Okay, now to begin with, we are going to discuss about a dead mobile phone, a phone that is not switching on. Okay, what if a customer brings a phone in your shop and tells you that the phone is not switching on? Maybe the phone fell on the ground or inside water, or maybe the phone just went dead, went off, and it's not coming on. What will you do? Well, the first thing you need to do is to open the phone and then check the battery voltage, the voltage of the battery. For example, if this is the battery, you have to open the phone, then you test the voltage of the battery. And in order to do that, you have to use your multimeter. If you don't have a multimeter as a phone technician, it's very important because a multimeter is like the backbone of any phone repairing. Maybe you may not have a DC power supply, an original hot air gun, but you need to have a multimeter because without a multimeter, there are so many things that you cannot do. So now what are you going to do? You check the voltage of the battery. What you do, you put your multimeter to DC, that's direct current. Here, that's 20 volt. And then you are going to take the reading of the battery. Now, if I take the reading of the battery, you see that the battery is, sorry, okay, this battery is 4.24 volt. The battery is well charged and is able to light up your phone. But if you test the battery and you see that the battery is like, let me say 3.5 volt, that voltage cannot on the phone. What you have to do, you have to boost the battery. But if you don't have a battery booster, you can also use another battery to test. What if you use another battery to test the phone and the phone does not come on? What will you do? If you put a new battery which is charged and still the phone doesn't come on, what will you do? The next thing you have to do is to you have to take the motherboard and then try to do inspection. Try to inspect the motherboard. Maybe by looking at the phone, at the motherboard, by looking at the motherboard, if there's any damage, maybe like water damage or any crack, any component that is that has damage that may be born. You see, that may be born or is broken, like a capacitor or any IC. Now, what if you check and you don't see any damage on the motherboard? What do you have to do? Well, the next thing you have to do, you have to check for shorting. You have to check for full shorting and half shorting. And to do that, you have to set your multimeter on booster mode. or you call it diode mode. This is the booster mode. Set your multimeter on booster mode, and then booster mode, where you put a multimeter on booster mode, you hear a beep. That's booster mode. You hear a beep. It shows it has continuity, which is the booster mode. And then you will check the battery connector. Check the battery connector, maybe by putting the black probe on ground and using the red probe to test the battery connector, or you will need to use the red probe and put it on ground. It depends on the person, on you, on the technician. But I like to use the red probe. Red probe goes on ground, and then the black probe, I use it to test the battery connector. If you test if you test the positive side of the battery connector, it should not be like this one. It should not beep. If the positive side of the battery connector beeps like the negative side, this is the negative side. The negative side, which is the ground, would always beep. But if the positive side of the battery connector, like this one, if it beeps like this other side, means that the phone is full shorting. But if it does not beep, if it gives a reading like this motherboard, the reading of this motherboard is okay. But that doesn't mean that if the reading is okay, the phone will not have any problem. The reading may still be okay, but yet the phone is half shorting. Or you can still give a reading of 250 volt or 200 volt, which is half shorting. And then if you test and you hear a beep on this side, the positive side of the battery connector, and you hear a beep which is full shorting, or even if you don't hear a beep, but yet the phone still does not come on, what will you have to do, or what will you do? Well, the next thing you have to do is to check for shorting capacitor. You have to check for the capacitors, like you see capacitors there around the power IC. This is the power IC, and then this is the charging IC. You see some bigger capacitors close to it, and it's just like the power IC, but it has fewer capacitors and one big inductor or coil. And then here you see the audio IC with the two resistors, and this other side is the network section. So what we have to do now is to check for shorting. Capacitors that are shorting, you will have to check for shorting capacitors. And the first thing you have to do, when any phone, if you receive any dead mobile phone, when you open the phone, after checking the battery, after checking the battery connector, and the phone still yet, even if the phone is not shorting, but still yet the phone does not switch on, the first thing you need to do as a technician, first thing first, go to the charging IC. The first place you have to go first to start checking is the charging IC. Why do I say that, the charging IC? Because when you look closely at this charging section of this phone, when you look closely, you see that there's a coil. This is a coil. This coil takes the voltage from this charging IC and distributes to other part of the phone, like the power IC, the audio IC, the network section. So when voltage leaves the charging section, that's the VBoost or your charging port where you plug your battery and where you plug your charger, and come into the charging IC, it will pass through a certain capacitor here and enters the charging IC. Then goes out in two ways. One of the ways is through this coil. Another one, if you see very closely, you see that this is a diode. This one here. It's a diode. So it would come here, two voltage will come out of the IC, one will pass through this coil and another one will pass through this diode to the battery. One passes through this diode like this from here will pass through this diode to the battery connector. But the other voltage will pass through this coil. It will pass through this coil and then pass through this coil and goes to this coil is going to supply that voltage to the power IC, to the other ICs like backlight IC, the charging section, the network section. This coil, this area is called the voltage system or the voltage phase. So meaning that this coil takes the voltage from the charging IC and distributes it to other parts of the motherboard like the power IC. So that's why the coil has a very huge responsibility. That's why in most cases when there's a phone is dead, the first place to attack first, or the first place to start troubleshooting is from this coil. Is from this coil. Now, in this motherboard, the coil is okay. The coil is okay because if you check this coil or any capacitor, like for example, if you check this capacitor, here it gives a reading, but on the other side it should beep. On this side it should beep, but on the other side it should not beep. It should give a reading like what you see. If it gives a reading like this, it means that the capacitor is okay. But if it beeps on both sides, it beeps on this side and it also beeps on this other side, it means that the capacitor is fully short. The capacitor is fully short. If it beeps on this side like this and beeps on the other side, it means that the capacitor is fully short. So you have to check this coil. This coil should not beep. You see? When you check it like this, you give a reading. You check the other side, you also give another reading. But if you use the both sides of the multimeter and touch the both end of the coil, it should beep. You see? It should beep because it's a coil. That's current flows through it, or it's a wire that passes through this coil. So when you touch the multimeter on both sides, it should beep. You see, which shows that the coil is okay. But if it doesn't beep, then you have to change the coil. So when I put the multimeter, red pole on ground and black pole to test, it should not beep. It should give a reading.